Hi, this is Lou from Glowing Pigs International, and this is the first in a series of tutorials where we're going to talk about how to code in Android an app that has music playing in the background as a service. And the reason why you'd want to do this is so that in your app, if a person wants to play a song, it'll play and they can go and surf the web or get their email or go to another app and the music will continue to play. Then they can come back into your app and stop the music when they're ready. I haven't seen that many demonstrations of how to actually code this on the internet, so that's why I put together these tutorials. So let's look at what we're going to do in this first tutorial. It's very simple. It's going to take 2 tutorials to do the whole app in its basic form. The first tutorial we're going to deal with the activity, which means dealing with the screen, and then the second tutorial will deal with the service. And at the end of the second tutorial you'll know how to do the basics, and then we'll move on to add things down the line to make the app even better. So basically right now it's very simple. This is how it looks. The screen is going to be one song called I Believe in Love by Danny Brooks, and you have a button to play the song, and when you press this button the song plays and the button changes to a stop button, and then when you want to stop the song you just hit again and the button turns into a play button. And when you press that button the service gets fired up and the music plays. So it's very simple to start. So let's look at how we do this. First of all, I want to show you how this button is put together. What we have are 2 ping files, graphics files, that are in the drawable section of your resource in your project. And just for those of you who are new to Android development, we're using Eclipse here. And if you want the basics of Android development, there's a good website called thenewboston.com. There's a guy named Travis who does a lot of tutorials on basic Android stuff, and I highly recommend you go to him because we're not going to go into the basics of Android. We're just going to move along as if you know what you're doing, but we will show you some new concepts. So anyway, in this drawable section we have this button. Let's get that up here, which is a pause or stop button. And then we have this button as a graphic, and that's the play button. And what we're going to do, and I'll show you how to do this, is to interchange those 2 graphics on the button that you create, so that depending upon whether you want to play music or stop music, the right graphic is displayed. Now let's look at our main.xml, which is the layout for our app. What it looks like here is just what you saw in the graphical layout. It's just what you saw without, though, the graphic. And the code for this is really what we have is we have a linear layout and we have a text view. The text view contains a string which contains that song title, I Believe in Love. What this is doing is it's referencing the string.xml file, and you see there's song underscore title and the title of the song. And that's how you should do all of your string referencing. Put your strings in the strings.xml file and then reference them from wherever, any of your other files. The other thing we have here is a linear layout with a button. The button is called button play stop. That's the button ID, and that's what we'll be working with in the application. Okay, I also want to let you know that I have created a shell service doing file, new, and then class. I created a service called myplayservice.java, And that's just there as a shell because we were going to reference that in our activity. So let's take a look at our activity. You've got, I've created just a really shell of an activity that we're going to add to through this tutorial. And here I have some comments showing what we actually have to do in this application. Number one, we need to obviously set up the things that are required to create an activity, which I set up the basics right here. And then we have to have an onCreate section, which says what happens when the activity is created. Then we have to set up our views, meaning set up our screen. Then we have to set up listeners. Listeners have to listen to what is happening to that button we have. And if somebody's pressing play, they have to obviously trigger the playing of music. If someone's pressing stop, they have to end the service and end the music. So that's what we have going on here. That's what we have to code. Okay, so let's get started here. First thing we want to deal with is our onCreate. So let me plug that in. And I'm cutting and pasting just to save us some time. So we have onCreate bundle saved instance state. You've probably seen this a lot, and it references our main.xml layout file. Now, because I'm starting from scratch, some of these things have red underlines. And why don't I just increase the size of this a bit so you can see better. So let's import the bundle library. And we're going to also import the intent library by how I hover over these red lines. Now, service intent, let me explain what we're doing here first of all. We're going to, in a try-catch loop, we're going to set up the service, meaning reference the service. We're going to trigger a method called initViews and then another method called setListeners, which are going to actually set up the view and set up the listeners. And then we have a catch here that does some message handling in case something goes wrong. And it'll put a message up in a toast. So let's import that toast library. Okay. So what if we hover over here, it's going to tell us that we need to create a local variable called service intent. So why don't we do that right now? And let's plug that in here. Okay. So I think it's pretty clear what we're doing here. I'm going to take this down for a second. And we now need to create our two methods, initViews and setListeners. Okay, so let's get those. So here's initViews and here's setListeners. I'm going to paste them in here together. And let's see what they do. To set up the view, we have to create a local variable called button play stop to reference that button play stop that we have in our main.xml file. Okay, so that's the first thing we're going to do. So let's set up that variable. And we'll just stick it up here with the intent variable. Now, you have a red line going under here. We have to import the button library. Okay. Now, what we have to do with this button play stop is we have to set up some listeners also. So we'll be doing that shortly, but I wanted to show you this next line here is the key to making that button become a pause or play button. What you use is something called setBackgroundResource. setBackgroundResource pulls from the resource file the particular graphic that you specify, and it will assign that to button play stop over here. So right here we're choosing the play button. So the play button, when the initial view comes up, the play button is what will be shown. And as you can see, that's what we're doing here. The next thing we need to do then is set up the listeners for the button so we know what to do. When the button is clicked on, when it's play, it'll execute the service and play the music, and then when the button is stop and we click on it, it will end the service and end the music. So we have to pull in another couple of libraries here. One of them is the view library, and one is the onClick listener library. So let me just pull that one in too. And what we're saying here then with the listeners is when you click on this button, the method button play stop click will be fired up. So let's get that button play stop click method in there. And what that we have a Boolean variable which I'm going to place up top, which says, is the music playing or is the music not playing? Okay. And that's going to determine for us which of those two graphics we display on the button, because when the music's playing we want to be displaying the pause button so you can stop it, and when the music's not playing we want to be displaying the play button. So we're saying here, if the music is not playing, we're going to play it, play audio, which is another method, and then we're going to display the pause button, and we're going to set music playing to true. But if the music is playing, then we want to stop the music and display the play button and make the Boolean false. Okay, so that's what's going on in here. Very simple. And then the next thing we want to do then is just the last things, which are setting up the method to play the audio and setting up the method to stop. And actually I'm going to show you how you can set up the shell just by doing this, and it's going to plug it in. And then by hovering over here I can do that, and it'll plug that one in also. Okay, so that's basically what we're going to do, and I'll just show you what goes into those methods. It's really pretty simple stuff. Play audio. Okay. We're going to plug in I'm going to skip this for a second here, and we'll just say we're going to show you that we start the service, which is the intent is service intent, and then we put in this catch in here just to catch any errors. What we have to do though in order to play the audio is tell that service what audio clip to play. So we're going to pass via the service intent using something called put extra. You can pass information to the service, and the information is passed as what's called a key value pair. So this is the key, which is the name of the value, sent audio link, and this variable string audio link contains the name of the audio link, and the name of that audio link is going to be 10.mp3. So we have to create that variable and initialize it with 10.mp3. So let's do that right up here. Okay, so it's 10.mp3. And what we're doing down here then is passing that over to the service to tell it what to play. Then we have to also have something to stop the music from playing. So we have something called stop my play service. And it's very similar to what we had in play. You're saying stop service intent, which is our service intent, And then we have a catch to catch an error. And we also set that bool music playing to false because the music is no longer playing. And this is an extra one. We don't need that. Whoops. I made a mistake there. Sorry. Okay. So that's pretty much everything we have to do to get this activity set up. Okay, so just to review, you've set up on create, you've set up your service, you set up your views, you make sure that the play button is the one that's being shown initially. You set up your listeners to listen to the button, and if the button here is in play mode, is in stop mode, you want to play the audio. If the button is in play mode, you want to stop the audio, and you stop it by stopping the service. Okay, and here we're passing the actual audio link to the service. So if we run this, what we're going to get is exactly what I showed you at the beginning, except it's not going to do anything. Right? We're going to have the activity, and we're going to be able to press it, and it changes, and then when we press it again, it changes back. But there's no music playing yet because we haven't done the service. So stick around for tutorial 2, and we'll take you through how to create the service. And at the end of that tutorial, you'll have a complete, simple application to play music in the background.